Boris Johnson's disastrous past few weeks has meant that most cabinet ministers are reluctant to go out on TV to defend him. They don't want to be associated with parties in Downing Street or obvious slanderous lies. That means we've seen a lot of the B team recently. Leader of that pack is Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, who gave this jaw-dropping interview this weekend.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister recently in the last 24 hours?
Why? Why are you asking me that question?
I'd like to know.
We've communicated.
I'm really confused. Is that a difficult question? I'm just asking if you've spoken to the Prime Minister in the last 24 hours.
We have communicated.
Okay. What has he communicated to you?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the extent of my communications with the Prime Minister. I mean, I've answered your question. We have communicated. What is your next question?
What's his mood?
I'd say his mood was very, very positive, extremely positive. I mean, onwards is one of his favourite expressions. I think he's very positive.
Has he changed?
Changed what?
His attitude.
To what?
To the way he runs the government. We're told that he sent out messages saying that, I remember the quote, him saying in the Commons, "I've got it, I get this," about things that have been done wrong. And the implication was that he was going to do business slightly differently. Indeed, he sent a letter to backbench MPs saying there's going to be more interaction. So my question is a pretty fundamental one, which is the impression we're supposed to take now that Boris Johnson admits that things should have been done differently, and I think that's his words, and I'm not trying to change any meanings around that. The implication of that is somehow a different Boris Johnson is emerging. Is he exactly the same in your book?
So your question was actually very open-ended and non-specific. But what I would say is that the Prime Minister, when he appeared before the 22 committee last week, promised change. And I think anybody who picks up a newspaper or reads a newspaper, receives a television news bulletin can see that a huge amount of change is underway at present, particularly in number 10.
Ash, I have to say, the one thing that I think I'll be a little bit disappointed about if and when Boris Johnson resigns is that I doubt performance artist Nadine Dorries will remain in the cabinet.
Those years that she spent at RADA really paid off, you know? She plays the character of dunder-headed reactionary so well, it's almost hard to tell where she ends. And, you know, this beautiful creature she's given birth to begins. It's like Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, in his prime, truly going method. I really struggle with Nadine Dorries, and I think it's also quite important to talk about the two sides to her today because of what's happened with Keir Starmer and David Lammy being harangued by far-right activists peddling the Jimmy Savile smear, which is, on the one hand, she is this meme. She is capable of delivering faces and media performances which are so stupid, quite frankly, that you just want to watch more and more. It's car crash TV, and I think that she's got some awareness of it, and she's able to take up that space in broadcast media where if she'd given a more conventional performance or one that actually tried to answer questions, you know, she'd be landing herself and her government in more trouble. She knows how to create distraction out of her own incompetence, and there's a weird form of talent to that. So that's a degree in which you can go, this is intentional. But then when you look at how she has conducted herself on social media, particularly when it comes to parroting far-right lines and even conspiracy theories. She retweeted an account which falsely claimed that you could be given benefits for having multiple wives if you're a Muslim. She was trying to hold Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, accountable for grooming gangs in Telford, which, as far as I'm aware, he is not the mayor of. She has retweeted Tommy Robinson before. And then when she was pulled up on the Jimmy Savile line directly, she was going, I don't know. I'm not in possession of the facts. I couldn't possibly. So she's quite happy to both overtly and through obfuscation lend credence to far-right conspiracies. So her media performances, I think, have this double edge to them, which is on the one hand, she's kind of a meme, and I find her hilarious. And on the other, I think that actually it's incredibly dangerous because she is part of this conveyor belt, which exists sort of trafficking opinion from the far right to the mainstream centre.
Let's actually show one more Nadine Dorries clip, which actually very much encapsulates both of those angles. We didn't cover this one at the time because it aired during one of our live shows, but this is Nadine Dorries answering a question after Boris Johnson had told that lie about Keir Starmer in Parliament.
One of the things the Prime Minister said today in the House of Commons that was basically untrue, and clearly untrue, was his allegation that Keir Starmer was responsible for not prosecuting Jimmy Savile. How can you have a Prime Minister just repeating fake news like that?
Well, I have no idea the background of Keir Starmer, and I know
it's
that
not true, and the Prime Minister repeated it. It's an old meme that's just repeated by.
Well, you know, there were things that Keir Starmer
theorists
said that someone who was the former Director of Public Prosecutions shouldn't have said at the dispatch box.
He didn't say anything that wasn't true.
He shouldn't have prejudged what a Met investigation was going to find.
He didn't say anything that was untrue.
Well,
Boris Johnson said something that was untrue.
He said things
he
that were
misled the House
inappropriate.
today.
I don't believe that's the case.
Well, it is what you're saying that Keir Starmer was responsible.
I don't know. I don't know the details.
Well, that's what the Prime Minister said.
Well, I haven't heard
he
your
shouldn't
word
have
for
said it, should he?
Well, I think there are lots of things that Keir Starmer shouldn't have said.
Well, there are clearly things that he said that aren't
The
true.
Prime Minister
Now, whether
tells
they were deliberate lies or not has yet to be established. But he's clearly said things to the House that were not true.
The Prime Minister tells the truth.
You see what I was saying? That's both sides of those things. It's a very memeable clip, but at the same time, she is defending, in that case, Boris Johnson telling a far-right lie, which is that Keir Starmer somehow has responsibility for Jimmy Savile's paedophilia.
And that's the thing, is that some of the worst behaviours that you see in the Tory party, particularly where they are pandering to the far right or using their lines, you can never quite tell if it's through ideological affinity or opportunism or both. And I think that this was a moment of opportunism for Nadine Dorries, but her conduct on social media does also suggest some ideological affinity. And so that's where I think that it's important to hold two things at once. One is to sort of look at that very cultivated aura of like buffoonishness, car crash TV, can't pull your eyes away. And the other is thinking about, well, what is this giving political legitimacy to? Because it does have, unfortunately, real world effects, as we saw today with the kind of horrible harassment of Keir Starmer and David Lammy.